episode of Short Film Saturdays.
Woo!
This is your old pal Moo Cow, a.k.a. Paul Presenza, and I'm joined by...
Jonathan A. Moody.
How's it going? All right. And today, we are watching, for Short Film Saturday, it turns out this was a pilot, a TV show pilot, for a show that never got made, and it was terrible. And it's called Mr. and Mrs. Dracula from 1980. And boy howdy, this was a really, really bad sitcom that's now floating around as a 22-minute, I guess you could call it a short film.
We call it a short film.
We call it a short film. And
it's pretty bad.
It's bad. It's like, like Dracula Dead and Loving It, only much worse. Much worse.
Much worse.
Yeah. And it was created by Robert Klein, who's the producer known for, he's a writer-producer known for Weekend at Bernie's and National Lampoon's European Vacation and a few other things.
This one was not Weekend at Bernie's.
No.
Was this before Weekend at Bernie's?
Yeah.
This is like his early efforts of when he was trying to figure out something to do better, you know.
Right. And it's Dick Shawn is playing Dracula. He was in a whole bunch of TV shows. He was a TV actor in the 70s and 80s. And Carol Lawrence plays his wife, Sonia, although it turns out they made one episode in 1980 and then they tried to do another episode in 1981 and they replaced Carol Lawrence with Paula Prentice. And it just didn't work. We didn't bother to see the second episode. I imagine it's not nearly as good.
I don't think I could get any better.
No.
I think it was done.
And Barry Gordon, he's been in a bunch of TV shows. He was the one who plays Cousin Anton. And then Sonny Dracula is Anthony Battaglia, and Gail Myron plays Mina Dracula. I don't think either one of them did anything.
Mina Dracula, so they tried to say like Mina Harker was Dracula's daughter?
Right. And then Johnny Haymar does the voice of Gregor the puppet bat, who was my favorite character.
He was the best, but he didn't really have much. The only thing he had is he told the guy to get locks.
Right, there was like a bunch of weird Borscht Belt kind of humor. Like, what should I get for my 619th anniversary? Yeah, it's like, oh, locks.
Locks.
Yeah, it's like, okay.
And then so he bought her a pound of locks. Half a pound, because that's all he could afford. Because he got fired from his job.
So Dracula and family get kicked out of Transylvania. They end up in the Bronx. Ha ha ha. They're in a shitty apartment.
I usually like fish out of water stories.
Yeah, This is ridiculous, though.
This is guppy out of water.
He's got to get a job, so he gets a job at the hospital, at the blood transfusion station. Ha ha ha.
But he did his own transfusion.
And got fired. So he's wandering around in New York City subways looking for work, and people are spray painting his cape. And it's just a bunch of ridiculous, bad
80s comedy humor.
Oh, God. It's just cringy. Some of it, like some of those racial stereotypes are cringy.
Oh, God, yeah. When he actually sucks the blood of the black guy and all of a sudden starts speaking like he was black.
Soul Brother. And, oh, dear. That's just bad.
And he talked like him, too. You're like, isn't this like the equivalent of like blackface now?
I know. It's bad.
No, it's pretty bad. It's terrible.
Eek. And, and they're like talking about, people don't know that I'm like this. And he really means, I guess a vampire.
But it also has a little pseudo, kind of homophobia kind of, feeling of,
cringy.
It's pretty bad.
Cringery and bad humor. It's just nothing like an unfunny, bad comedy.
I know. I mean, it's hard to make a comedy, especially with Dracula, because, I feel like all the best Dracula jokes are done, there's really not much else you can do with him.
It's like he's biting the one guy and the laugh track is people are laughing and you're like, why is that funny?
Why? And you're like, because it's a laugh track. They have to put that in there, I guess.
Ridiculous.
I don't know. It was weird.
It's floating around out there in YouTube land. If you really want to watch a ridiculous, bad comedy, this is right up there. Bad sitcom. Bad sitcom. No
bad sitcom.
No
Bump you on the nose.
You can see why it got, because it was just terrible. I can't imagine. Can you imagine somebody picked this up and actually ran it? There was like a season's worth. I can't imagine.
I mean, I was telling him this is the longest 20 minutes I felt.
How did this get greenlit from the beginning?
From the script.
Somebody actually sat there and listened to a pitch about this.
Well, no. I mean, this once again, a fish out of water story. Dracula in the Bronx. That's funny. Whatever. Like
Maybe.
that's got potential to be a sitcom, right? Because they need a story. What can we put in the Bronx? Let's put Dracula's family in the Bronx. But the stuff that they did, like the only males can be vampires. I'm like,
Why?
so didn't Dracula have a bunch of vampire like daughters?
So then what is Sonia then? And they've been married for 618 years. If she's not a vampire, then what is she?
Yeah, like how did she survive being married for 600 and something? And like, or do they expect their children, the daughter's just gonna die?
And the kids are obviously like teenagers. So are you telling me they had sex and produced children not too long ago?
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
It's
unless
so
they kidnapped the children.
It's so ridiculous. It's just bad.
I know. There's just like there's so many questions that don't get answered, obviously,
Yeah.
because they weren't thinking of this as like something that people think about. This is something like you watch, you know. There was a time in the 80s and the early 90s where there was just
Mindless
sitcoms that were on television that nobody ever watched, you know, because they were just not funny.
Right.
But somehow I mean, I'm surprised this didn't even get a season, because some of those shows do even get a whole season, and they're just like, you watch them, you go, why did somebody approve of this?
Who
Like,
greenlit this? Who sat there and listened to this and was like, yeah, let's make this.
Mr. and Mrs. Dracula.
And then like the kids have the typical kids problem, like the kid, I don't want to be a vampire. Oh, but my father was a vampire and I'm a vampire. My grandfather.
Your father,
You will be a vampire. And ridiculous.
My father's father was a vampire. My father was a vampire. I'm a vampire.
And
And you're gonna be a vampire.
girl wants to go out and have friends and go to rock concerts, and he's not having that.
Except for the Grateful Dead.
Grateful Dead.
He'll think about that.
Think about that.
Yeah,
Because
it's
sounds like there are kinds of people.
all kinds of people. Yeah,
Ah.
actually that was probably the best joke in the movie,
Oh, dear.
the show. I will admit that actually kind of made me laugh, like snicker, because of all the bands. But it's the Grateful Dead.
And then like the guy who's fixing the radiators so that they blow out cold air only. You know, he's this black guy and he's got this giant freaking
Boombox.
ghetto blaster and he's like grooving all over the place.
Everybody's
like,
laughing in the beginning on that.
man.
And I'm like, why are they laughing at him dancing? Like,
Why is he
just-
dancing?
Why is that? You know, yeah.
Why is he listening to a radio at work where he's supposed to be fixing somebody's radiators?
He's radioating.
He's being a stereotype is what's going on. It's just
Yeah, and then he calls what does he call the bat? He calls him a
Oh,
parrot.
Gregor, yeah, he calls him that parrot can rap. That was the cutest thing I thought.
What?
It's stupid. It's so ridiculous.
That parrot can rap.
That parrot can rap.
And then when the guy sees his the markings on the cape, he's like, "Oh, I know that guy."
Oh,
Chico.
and the black guy that he bites is like, you know, Superfly Pimp Daddy from 1972 in this outrageous, you know, velvet red pimp suit and
Yep.
loud hat and loud shoes.
And then he's like, what did he say? He said something to the effect of like, "I like your cape. I want your cape." And he's like, "Oh, you like my cape? You want to see the lining?"
The lining, yeah.
You know, and that's when everybody laughs, and I'm like, "Wait, what?" Like, cause he's biting the guy. Like the comedy sort of is supposed to come when he becomes the guy. You know?
And, you know, the wife is there, and it's the typical wife things. Oh, you forgot my anniversary, blah, blah, blah. It's just, you know, it's like Fred Flintstone and Barney Rubble kind of humor, you know.
I think it's worse.
Yeah, it's worse. It's lower than a cartoon. It was
Yeah.
just bad.
At least the cartoons are sort of cute. And
Yeah,
fun.
yeah, there's
This
nothing
is
cute
just
and funny.
this is very cringy.
This was a fail. Even for 1980, this was a fail. But they tried again in 1981.
Did you write failed sitcom, or did they say that on the thing?
They said that.
On the YouTube, they're like failed comedy.
I have not seen the second try. I'm curious to see what that's like with
Maybe
Paul
next
Prentice.
season.
Maybe next season.
We'll
We'll bring
I don't
it
know,
back.
man. This was 20 minutes that like I'll never get back. I don't know if I want that again.
It was rough. It was bad. It was terrible.
You were saying, "Oh, these are gonna make you laugh." I'm like, now I'm like scared of what your next one is.
Well, laughing not for the reasons they thought, because they thought they were being funny. It's like, no, it's terrible.
This is terrible, yeah.
And I just felt embarrassed for everybody involved with it. I'm sure it never showed up on their resumes. They're like, yeah, let's forget that ever happened.
Aren't you a Mr. and Mrs. Dracula? Sorry,
No.
I can't work with you.
No, we're sorry, we don't know what that is. Jeez.
All right, well, thank you guys for checking this out. Join us next week or next 2 weeks for my episode, and then I think it's the finale. So for the season. So until then, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Let's move back to Transylvania.